Okay, we're continuing Siman Piaf al-Chazayin. Last time we actually didn't read the Shulchan, we just did an introduction, which was just a short part. What we need for today is there's a machlokes. The Ramban holds that it's completely mutter to eat human flesh from a living person. The Rambam holds that it's an Isra Aseh to do that. And we had mentioned the Rambam passes like the Rambam that it's Asr. And we mentioned that there were drushes in the Gemara that specifically that milk from a human and blood from a human is mutter midiraisa. Okay? And we had said that we're going to talk about the Drabanan. That's today is what are the Yisur and Drabanan. But on the Deraisa level, it's the Beferish drushes in the Gemara that milk and blood from a human is mutter. Okay, so now I'll read the Shulchan Aruch, the long Shulchan Aruch here. It says, Chol of Isha mutter. Chol from Isha is mutter, which is, that's the din deraisa. That Chol from Isha is mutter. But it's only mutter shapirish. If it left her body. Like if you put it into a cup. And we'll explain what the reason for this is in a second. An adult who would nurse from a lady, it's also, it's a very strong language, from a sheretz, and he gets markers because he's doing Issa Drabanan to nurse, to drink the milk straight from the lady's body. A child can nurse, so it said here an adult can. So who can? So a child can nurse until he's 4 or 5 years old, depending on how healthy he is. And he's allowed to go 4 or 5 years if he didn't stop at some point. If after he was 24 months old, he had stopped nursing for 3 full days, then his time is up and he can't go to 4 or 5 years. So he can go to 4 or 5 years if he continues, but if he stops after 24 months, before 4 or 5 years, for more than 3 days, then he's over. The who, and this that we said that stopping, makes him not be allowed anymore. He stopped because he was healthy, meaning he was just old enough. He stopped nursing. But if he was sick and he couldn't nurse, or let's say he was in the hospital for a week and his mother couldn't nurse him, and he stopped, then you could put him back to nursing because he didn't have a real stop. What happens if there was a sakana? So let's say he stopped after 24 months, and now he's not nursing anymore, but now there's a sakana to him. So then you can put him back even if he stopped nursing for a couple of days. And the Shach points out, it seems like an obvious point. We're talking here about an Isser. Even if it would be an Isser Deraisa, it's a culture that's an Isser Derabanan. So what do we have to say that in Yesh Sakana you could put him back, he could start nursing him? Well, what's the point? If it's a Sakana, you could do anything. So the Shach says it means is you can let him come back, but he's not now allowed to keep nursing until he's 4 or 5 years old. So you can only nurse as long as there's a Sakana. So the Sakana is matter. The Sakana doesn't put him back into being a child with nursing. If within the 24 months, I feel piercing even if he stopped for a whole month, till 24 months he's allowed, but then again, he's not allowed to do it after 24 months. He gets to stop. Okay, so that's the Mechaber. There's going to be Ramah, that's for a different time. Okay, so what did the Shulchan Aruch say? Now that I read you all that. In short, he said was, Midaraisa, milk from a human is mutter, but only for children. Only to nurse straight from the lady is only for children. But basically, for everybody else, it's going to be usher, unless it's separated from the lady. It's in a cup. Okay, and the din by blood is exactly the opposite. The din by blood is exactly the opposite. Blood from a human is really mutter midaraisa, but it's only mutter if it's straight from the human. Okay, but if I have a cut in my mouth, I could swallow that blood. If it's straight from the human, but if it's separated from the human, then it's mutter. Okay.
Or do you do intravenous from one person to another straight?
No. Hold on a second. Intravenous. I mean, if you're not drinking it, but it's
direct from one to the other.
No. So the answer is. I'll explain you the reason. You'll hear why. Yeah, it's a vampire. So vampires are mutter, right? If you want to be a vampire, that's okay. You go straight from the person, that's okay. Okay, you could be a vampire. But so what's pshat? And that din about dam is brought in Siman Samach Vav. It's brought about Samach Vav. Okay, what's the reason for these din? So the reason is exactly the same reason for both of them. Okay, and they both have to do with marasayim. And that is to say, if I have milk from a human in a cup, okay, from a cup, so that milk from a human in a cup looks like milk. Well, what's the din of milk? Everybody looks at milk and say milk is mutter. Normal milk comes from cows. So there's nothing strange. You don't look like you're doing an issue when you drink that milk. So it stays mutter. It's mutter with the rice, and there's no marasayim. the opposite is blood. When you have blood in a cup, well, blood in the cup looks like blood, which is usher. So there's the Marasayin that it looks like you're drinking blood. So even though this one happens to be blood that's mutter, but it looks like blood that's usher, and therefore you can't drink it.
Even blood from a fish is...
The same thing by blood from a fish. If it's in a cup, you can't drink it also. Okay? And then the opposite, if it's coming straight from the body, so the blood from a human, when you take it out of the person's body, no one realizes you're taking it from, that it's blood, and it's also coming from, it's obvious it's coming from a person, so there's no Marasayin when you do that. And when, for a person to take milk from a human's body, to drink straight from the lady, is also because they say also, sort of a Marasayin, because since eating human flesh is usher, or, if you hold it's mutter, nobody does it anyhow, so it looks strange. The people think you're eating something that's usher. It's obviously that you're getting something out of this body. It's not like you're sucking a wound out of your hand. It's obviously you're taking milk out of there. It looks like you're eating something isser or something strange, because people don't eat human flesh, according to the Rabban, and therefore, it's usher.
So maybe vampires would be a problem.
Because everyone can tell that they're sucking blood out of it. So it depends how you understood exactly the end of that reason. It depends. Hey, until the end of that reason.
I'm walking up a couple seconds late there.
Yeah.
Do we need a pasuk to permit? I mean, the pasuk, obviously, the Torah we see that Vayonak, this and that. Do you need a pasuk to permit that the milk is mutter for a person to drink from a human person? Just like we need a pasuk to tell it's not Abram in a hide, it's not this,
So
why don't we need even a pasuk? I'm just saying.
You think why? Because instead we should just say it's obviously that people are meant to nurse, right? Obviously babies are meant to do that, so it must be that it's mutter. Okay, that's a fair question.
Nobody brings on a pasuk, I'm saying.
There is a pasuk. It's a Gemara. Yeah, it's a Gemara.
The same thing about this in
What? We'll talk about minutes in a second, okay? A little bit in a second, okay? Okay. So, now, let me ask you a question. So I said to you, if blood comes from a human and put into a cup, that it's a din back in Kamach love. You put blood into a cup, the blood is usher. Why? Because of the Marasayin. Because it looks like blood. Like blood like blood is regular blood. Regular blood is usher. Regular blood is from from animals. It's whatever comes.
Yeah, blood from an egg that wasn't a fertilized egg.
And therefore what?
It's the same idea. You don't need it even though it's not really blood.
But okay, right. So actually, it talks a little bit about that in Samach blood, and that's just right. But if I have blood from a human in a cup, then it looks like now. What would happen? It's because of Marasayin. What happens now if I do something to it that makes it not look like blood anymore? Okay, the issue is because of Marasayin, because it looks like blood. Okay, but this thing doesn't look like blood anymore. This thing just looks like, I did something to it that now it doesn't look like blood anymore. I sprayed right. Okay. No, well, maybe it still looks bad. I did something to it, and I'll give you an example in a second, okay? The example is, this is my example, this is from last time. This is the beginning of the slide from last time, okay? And the one we have for today is, okay, umbilical cord blood serum, okay? They take something from the umbilical cord, from the blood in the umbilical cord, and they take one part out of it, and the part you take out of it doesn't look like blood anymore. It's an element that's in there. So what would you say now? Would you say there's Maras Ayin now? Because, well, it's the other side is the easier side. There's no Maras Ayin because it doesn't look like blood. The whole issue was because it looks like blood. This doesn't look like blood, so it should be okay. Or do you say, come on, when it was in a cup, when they collected it, it became Asur M'Darbanan to drink it. It became Asur M'Darbanan to drink it. And now, you can't play with it afterwards. You can't ruin the Maras Ayin. You can't ruin this. Okay, I'll get that. Very good.
Maras Ayin doesn't remain Asur, but what's placenta baji?
That was last week's. I missed that. That was last week. That was the beginning of the slideshow. We were going to do the whole thing in one long, I was going to just book for now, but that was last time.
Right.
That was last time. Okay, so that was last time. So anyhow, so I thought that l'chayr should be usher. That l'chayr should be usher because once the blood became usher, I actually one night, I think it was right before Rabbi Reese spoke. Rabbi Zucker spoke at Beis Yitzchak, and he walked by. So he looked lonely for a second. So I was thinking about it. I said, Rabbi Zucker, what do you think about the Shiloh? So he said, no, l'chayr should be usher. He said, I don't. He said, l'chayr should be usher.
It's a grab on it. The chepsa doesn't become usher. It's really usher for me to drink it.
Why? What's the difference?
That's how I always, been learning. When you have an Instagram on, it's not a chepsa b'yisura. It's just for me to drink. So if I go ahead and I change it, who said Chazal made that din?
Okay.
On me to ask.
So I wouldn't have thought like that, but in fact, your diukim over here that might be true. In the din Samach Vav, it talks about like what he mentioned. If there are scales in the cup of fish blood, then there's no more Maras Ayin. there's a shayla whether if you eat the scales and later.
The
almonds or over here also. Well, it says here also. It says what happens if the Ramah says what happens if you mix this blood into something else? Okay, you have a person. He's in the middle of making kugel. He cuts his finger and some blood falls into the kugel, and now it's all mixed in. Okay, now it gets mixed in. So the Ramah says it's not asa b'tarufas. He says why? So everyone says why? Because the whole issur is all marasayin. Well, there's no marasayin anymore. Now it's in the kugel. There's no more marasayin. Well, what do you mean marasayin? But it was also with Rabbanan. So why am I saying it became usher, and now there's an issur Rabbanan mixed into my kugel? Who cares if this is marasayin anymore? So we have to understand that. Okay, so this shiloh, whether you can eat this umbilical cord blood serum, might depend on that. Okay, there are people who eat it for, what do they do it for? I forgot what they use it for. Okay, anyhow, if it's, you say it's usher, once it was a marasayin, I mean they collected it, and it was marasayin, then it should be usher for good. Even if we get rid of the marasayin, then it should be. I'm not clear how you understand from this din over here. The marasayin din of the blood, it might be a possibility to say that it's water. I'm not sure. Okay. You have to...
Is there dental by marasayin? I mean, is there...
Marasayin doesn't answer anything. If something is also marasayin, I remove it. Everything else is mutter. If I had, for example, a blood spot that wasn't really blood, looked like a blood source, also marasayin, I take it out. Everything else is mutter.
Okay. So you're saying the reason is because there's no like tam kick around things that are marasayin. Okay. I don't think that's what it says over here. We have to look back over here and see that did better. They make it sound like, well, there's no more marasayin because now it's mixed in. You can't see it anymore. That's what the impression is. So I'm like,
it's not a chef's shulus. Which is
but does it have to be bottled? Does it have to be bottled like a regular server? It doesn't have to be bottled. So it's a special rule for bittul. Okay, so then I'm not sure why they're saying it like as if it has to do with the marasayin. There's no more marasayin because it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. Okay, we'll have to see that. Okay, now this stuff, it's for people use it for genetic disorders. They think it helps for that. That's what I see here. So since it's only asim midrabanan, remember human blood is only asim midrabanan. Since it's only asim midrabanan, you have to bear that in mind because for a chaylam, many things that are asim midrabanan are mutter for chaylam. Okay, so this stuff, people are not drinking this, with their morning donut. I mean, this is not like people are drinking this for fun. This is for chaylam. So remembering that it's only this midrabanan might make it mutter for the right guy, for the right person. Okay.
Strawberry flavor?
Okay, strawberry flavor. I don't know how it comes. Okay, now the Shach says in Ayin Test. He doesn't exactly say what I'm about to say, but I believe that's what he says. That like this. When the Gemara says there's a drasha that midaraisa human milk is mutter. Okay, what the Gemara means to tell us is like this. According to the Ramban, this is not really what I mean to say. I said to you this. According to the Ramban, when the Torah said that human milk is mutter, it was telling you that human completely are not. Right. Things that you're not allowed to eat, and that's why the milk is mutter. Telling us that milk is mutter is a way of telling you, and human flesh is mutter also. That's what the Ramban learns. Okay? But according to the Rambam, human flesh is usher, it's usher to eat human flesh. So when the Torah said that you can eat milk from a human, what the Torah meant to say was, what the Torah was trying to teach us is that the din of kol ha'yotzeh min ha'tamei is usher only applies to isurei lav. Something that's an Isra Asay doesn't have that rule of Kol Yotzeh Min HaTamei Tamei. That's what it's teaching us a principle that Yotzeh from an Isra Asay is not Usher.
Isra Asay. Just give me the pasuk. Don't have to say
the Torah tells you which chayas you're allowed to eat. You're allowed to eat, and then this is excluded. Okay. So
is that what the Shach said? Is that the answer? Is that what the Shach we just said? Was that the Shach?
That pasuk?
No, before you did.
This is that
principle you just said.
That it's teaching us that yotzeh from Isra Asay, it's teaching you that there's no yotzeh from Isra Asay. Well, the only typical yotzeh from Isra Asay we have is milk from a human, and it's already something that's mostly to teach you that there's no problem of yotzeh from Isra Asay. Okay. We had basically this thing. No one says that. I don't think straight out, but way back in Halacha Aleph, in this simon we had, it talked about whether meiraglayim from treif animals is kosher or not. Okay, it was a machlok to see whether meiraglayim from a chamor is mutter or not mutter. Okay, and the Shulchan ends up of meiraglayim the adam with dever hakol mutarim. Even if you hold that meiraglayim from a chamor is usher, meiraglayim from a person is mutter. Okay, what was the reason for that? What's the reason for that? So the person say over there, they say, well, kosher came. If milk is mutter, if milk from a human is mutter, kosher came, meiraglayim is mutter. what's the kosher cane? What's kosher cane? That this is what that's what. What they mean to say is that once we heard that milk is mutter, the Torah is telling you that even real yotzeh is mutter. Even there's no yotzeh from an assay. Well, then this is even downgraded. This might not even be considered yotzeh. There's a shayla even from a chamar would be a yotzeh from other behemoths. So it's because we learned this rule that yotzeh from a human is not yotzeh from an Israel is not also. Okay. Now the Shach, I'm just going to say quickly, he mentioned it. We had talked about in Sim Pedal that the Shach talks about maybe this is about the Shachsu. Okay, because to eat, merag lion from a human, maybe there's about the Shachsu on it. So the Shach says something very interesting. At first, you wouldn't know what it means. The Shach says, and therefore, for a chayla, you're allowed to have it. He says it would be about the Shachsu to drink it. So when the Shulchan is it's mutter, he really means b'taruvus. He doesn't mean that you really drink a cup of it. He says, but for a chayla, it would be mutter. Okay, so it's just interesting because the Prima Government says, he says, what are you talking about? Baal Tashatzus and Issa Deraisa. So Baal Tashatzus and Issa Deraisa, how was it mutter for a chayla? A chayla can't do Yisur and Derabanan. Yisur and Deraisa. You never heard of a regular chayla doing Israel. What? No, it's talking about a chayla she'en b'sakah. Not talking about a chayla she'en b'sakah. What? So the Prima Government says, he says, the pshat is that it only Baal Tashatzu is a subjective decision. What do people nowadays consider normal to eat or not normal to eat? So for regular people, it's not about the shaksu. It would be disgusting to eat that. But for cholim, it's not. Cholim have to do with strange things. They don't drink till there. It's talk this much. Okay.
Are there any byproducts that are out there with made up lion?
Yeah, the whole rest is life. We're coming. Yeah, just give me a second. That's the whole bottom. We're getting to the bottom of the page. That's where we're headed. Okay. So now the Ramban is not going to have such a rule. I don't know what other Israel say he has. The Ramban has no such rule that the yotzeh from Israel say is not usher. Okay, he doesn't think humans are usher, but if we come across another Israel say, whatever that will be, I can't think of one, but I'm sure there is one, another Israel say, the Ramban has no makor that the yotzeh is not. Okay, so what's some examples? Okay, so there's a type of fertility treatment, which is called, I can't pronounce it, gonadotropin treatment. Okay, gonadotropin treatments. And these gonadotropin treatments are made from all kinds of, I'm going to use the word enzymes, but I don't know if that's what they really are, that can be found in urine of humans, okay? And they go by these initials because they're much easier to pronounce than the letters. Okay? Human chorionic gonadotropin is nicely called HCG, and luteinizing hormone, and human menopausal gonadotropin. Okay, now, the first one, HCG, is made by pregnant women. Pregnant women secrete that, their body gives it off, and you can extract it from their urine. And the next one, LH, which doesn't say flush now, LH is made men and ladies making it, pituitary gland makes it, and HMG is made by ladies who are post-menopausal. That's what it's called, human menopausal, whatever, how you pronounce it. Okay, and all these things they can take out of find in the person's urine, and they use them for really for fertility treatment, but they're homeopaths who use it. There's a diet, there's an HCG diet in case you were interested. There's all kinds of people using it, but fertility is the main real, so to speak, real use that they have for it. And of course, so now these are easy to say that they're really, that's the truth, they're really easier because we don't have to be so smart. The Shulchan said that married line from a human is mutter. Okay, so all these things come from married line from a human are mutter, but we now understand what that means. They're mutter because it's a yotzeh from an adam. An adam is at most an Israel say, passing to Israel say. There's Israel say, there's no bit of yotzeh from an adam, and therefore the urine itself is mutter, and then no Meshuggah is going to drink the urine. But if you get a HCG from it, and it's good for fertility treatment, then that's fine. That's mutter. It's 100% mutter.
In what form is it used as a fertility treatment? I understand the woman drinks that.
No, I highly suspect that they. Okay, I forgot to mention. Thank you for mentioning. I forgot to mention that. Usually give it by injection. Okay, which would be a Kashrus shiloh anyhow if you give it by injection. But were we to come up with a way to give it in pill form, I mean, they're not drinking the urine itself. They're pulling something out of there, which is this HCG or HMG.
It's not anything that they're ingesting.
So right now, the way they use it is through injected. But were it to be used orally, which I'm not the doctor, I have no reason why they wouldn't be used orally, then it would be mutter to eat this thing. It would be mutter.
Well, you wouldn't have about the shaksu, you said.
And it would about the shaksu because it's for a chayla, because these are things are for chayla.
Medical purpose.
That's Rabbi Rishkash. Okay, but we potentially, these people are chayla. Okay, so, and the other really obvious yotzeh is actually human milk. Okay, we're going to save talking about human milk for probably not next time, probably in 2 times from now. Actually using human milk, okay? That's the most obvious yotzeh, okay? Which, remember we said, it's awesome to eat human milk in a cup. It's awesome to eat that. Probably in 2 times, okay? Okay, now, and then I have another group of things that are not, to my mind, these things are not yotzehs, Okay, you tell me what you think about it. If we take something from a human, and we pull out a desirable part. We take something that we like. Using examples that are up here on the screen. Let's say I take HCG out of human urine. Okay, now urine happens to be mutter. But do you think the HCG is a yotzeh from the urine, or it's the urine itself? I mean, it has the status of the urine itself, or is it yotzeh from that? Okay, now for the urine, it makes no difference. But here's my example. Okay, let's say you take L-cysteine. Okay, L-cysteine is a dough conditioner. It's a amino acid. It's used as a dough conditioner. It makes doughs do good things that they're supposed to. I don't know, whatever it's supposed to do. And they put it in small amounts into dough.
In the shower.
What do you say? No, it makes it stay fresh and longer. Whatever it does to them. I don't remember what it does. Okay, so the L-cysteine, one of the ways that they make it from is from human hair. Okay, it's found in high concentrations in human hair. That's one of the places they get it. So they go around the way they said it. They used to go to barbershops in third world countries, sweep up the floors, and then collect that hair, and take the L-cysteine out of the hair. Okay, so to me, that doesn't sound like it, although it's an extraction from the hair, and it's only part of it, but really it's part of the hair. To me, it sounds like the hair, it has whatever the din of the hair is, would be the din of the L-cysteine. Now, it happens to be that human hair is not have the din of a human, because like even the hair from a pig is mutter. It's not considered an edible part, so it would be mutter anyhow. Okay, but just we're not going to talk about it. I'll say in 10 seconds. The more serious shilas to L-cysteine are, which we're not going to talk about, are that you can also get it from people who cut their hair for avodah zarah, as infamously. Now they talk about it for shekels, but it was first came up with the L-cysteine. At one point it was an L-cysteine shilah. It came potentially from avodah zarah. They get it from cadavers. We can talk about that in a second. They get it, and another big place they get it from is chicken feathers. Okay, chicken feathers also, for whatever reason, have a lot of it. But chicken feathers, kosher chicken feathers would be okay. But treif chicken feathers, what they do is they dunk the chickens, the nevelas, with the dam into hot water. So they have shilas of blias of dam and nevela into the chicken feathers. So those are a lot of the shilas. Now you should also know, you can get L-cysteine made by fermentation, completely with none of these shilas. Okay, but there's lots of Torah about this. I was coming to, I said, we skip it. The L-cysteine has all kinds of shilas. So I was going to maybe do its own thing by itself, just on L-cysteine shilas. What do you say?
Excuse me, there's a hair in your system.
Okay, fine. Now, the next thing is, there's a couple of things that can be made from human umbilical cords. I mentioned one before, the human blood cord serum. But there's a bunch of other things that can be made from human umbilical, from the umbilical cord. And to me, that doesn't, again, there's another example. It doesn't sound like a yotzeh. Even though we extract something out of there, it is a piece of human. Okay, it is a piece of human, and it depends on the machlokes. The Rambam passes like the Rambam that humans are usher. So if you had a human umbilical cord, it's usher to eat. Okay, it's like a piece of it should be like a piece of meat. It should be usher, and therefore, okay, it's not clear that anybody really uses these things. They're a lot using. The way I read, they're using cosmetics, and even they're not. So it's a big deal whether you're allowed to use it. Whether cosmetic people let you use it. Okay, and the last one is. I don't know if this is on the screen. It's coming later. Something from human growth hormone. We're going to get to that in a second. That has to do with the next part. Okay.
Are they harvesting anything from human fetuses?
From fetuses? I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Okay. Not that I came across, but hey, you never.
Because that's one of the arguments. Why not use umbilical cord? Because you can get the same stuff because there's.
I don't know. Okay. Now, the last thing we have to talk about is we've been talking all this time about things that come from humans that are alive. Okay, all the machlokes Rambam and Ramban is from humans that are alive, whether their flesh is mutter or. Okay, what happens if a person is not alive anymore? When he's dead, then we come to a different shaila. Okay, a very different question, which is the Shach brings this in Ayin Test, but it's at the end in Hilchos Averos, the Shulchan says that you're not allowed to have hana from a body. Okay, there's an issur hana on a body. Most hold that that's an issur d'oraisa to have hana from a human body. Okay, so then it's not a question of Isur Yachila like we're talking about, like, the beginning part of your day. It's the end part. It has to do with an Isur Hana from a human body.
You're talking about a cadaver now?
A cadaver, a dead body. Yeah, from a dead body.
From Israel.
What? From a cadaver. That's my next paragraph. Okay, but if it's from a guy, the Shulchan says both from a yid and from a guy to Asur. That's the Shulchan says. He says both are Asur. I was going to bring it in. I got too lazy. The Shulchan, no, this is about having hana. Not about having whether you could eat it.
What's similar to over there?
Shin Mem Test Halakha Aleph. Okay, but there's a huge machlokes as to whether the issa from a guy is an issa d'oraisa, an issa d'rabbanan, or completely mutter. Okay, it's a huge machlokes. If you want to know more about it, in the Nishmas Avram, there's pages. He goes on for pages about it. Okay, I'll tell you what he talked about this.
By a medical school to use
right. So correct. That's his. He's talking about the medical school.
Scandal once because whatever, one of the Jewish medical schools ended up that they had a Jewish cadaver.
Really? Okay. So the shaila there is exactly what he's talking about, revolving on whether medical students can have hana from cadavers. If they're from a guy, whether that makes it more mutter. From a yid, they for sure can. Whether from a guy, whether they can or not. It's a very big machlokes over there. Many achronim who talk about this. That shaila. Okay. So there's a little oddity that has that to do with us, which is the Pri Megadim in Ein Tes says that having hana from a dead body is only an Isser Aseh, but the way he talks about it implies that there is a Tam Ke'eker on that Isser Aseh, okay, which to us is a little confusing, because we had said, really last time, from that when things are Isser Aseh, there's no yotzeh, that's what we talked about today a little, and there's no Tam Ke'eker either. The Pri Megadim talks about it as if there's Tam Ke'eker, because he says, if the piece of a dead body falls into food, he says, talk about being this Tam of Kam, as if we have to declare about it being Tam Ke'eker, which is not so the way we would have said. Okay, anyhow. So what's some examples of a person wanting to use something from a dead body? Okay, what are our examples? So we had one, we talked about the medical students, that's what the Nishmas of Rambam spoke about, and many already talk about that for medical students. But of course, I was waiting for someone to say this. I think someone said last time. The most obvious case is a cannibal. Okay, if you want to be a cannibal. Okay, so according to that's the most obvious thing. You want to use a dead body. So what it is like this. According to the Rambam that we learned last week, that it's Isra Aseh to eat from a human who's alive, and obviously it's also when he's dead. Also, he doesn't get mutter when he comes dead. So according to the Rambam, it's for sure Isra Aseh to be a cannibal. Okay. According to Ramban, it would be mutter from that side, but it's also just because of this shiloh of having hana from a dead body. Okay, so then according to the Ramban, if you hold like the right achronim, then you could have it from a guy's body. You could be a cannibal like that. I don't recommend it. But anyhow, we pass like the Rambam. So you're not allowed to be a cannibal, of course. Either according to the Rambam because it's alive, or because it's also even mitham Isra Aseh. According to the Ramban, it would be totally in the shadow. What?
Because the Yisra Hana.
Because the Yisra Hana. We totally in the shadow. Well, then shadow if it's a yid or a guy, and if he's a guy, then it depends on that shadow whether there's an Yisra Hana. Okay.
I'm planning on posting this anyway.
Well, I mean, you need to know if you get stuck after you eat.
The famous channel is if you get stuck on a desert island, and your friend and pigs on the island, and what's better to eat?
Your friend, you pig.
Okay, as long as you're on a desert island.
Okay. Now a more sensational, but not so lamaisa nowadays. This is a big to do in Achronim. This is obviously it's in Dr. Chuba. Loads of people speak about it. Lots of people speak about it, which is it seemed that people thought it was very helpful to eat mummies. Okay,
what?
Mummies. Okay, to eat mummies. I don't get exactly why, but they're not Achronim. Yeah, it's a big no Dr. Chuba 9 test. I guess this is when they're discovering mummies. Yeah, I don't think. Mumia, and if you wonder whether, it's Mishra Lachmanos, very good. Very good. So
it's supposedly improved with age.
If they use honey for preserving, quite tasty.
You never know. I haven't tried. Okay. And the last one that has the most lamaisa, or used to be lamaisa anyhow, was that in the 60s. In the 60s, they figured out that they could get something called human growth hormone. HGH, human growth hormone, and they used to take that from the pituitary gland of dead people, and it was used to treat people who weren't growing properly. I guess that's what it produces in the pituitary gland. They would take from dead people. They would take this HGH out of so in the 60s, that's what they used to do. From the 1960s to the 1980s, they used to do that. They used to take it out of dead people. And whether that would be mutter or also depends on the Rambam holds that for sure would be also, for sure would be the Isra Aseh.
Well, if you're going to eat it, I mean, they had to treat people with the hormone, so it'd be us if they were just injecting it.
I don't remember if it was injected. I don't remember that. You might be right if it was injected. And then the other shiloh that having hana from a dead body, that was even rejected. The shiloh that having hana from a dead body, and if it's a Jewish or not Jewish person. Okay, now, just for in case you were dying to know about this, they only did that for like about 20 years. Okay. Then they found out that people were getting a disease. I really can't pronounce this one, but it's initially CJD. Okay, Kruzage and spelled Jacob. Yeah, some kind of a disease that they were getting.
The mad cows.
I don't know if it is. I don't know. Okay, they got this disease that would lie dormant for 10, 15 years. They would pick it up from the dead bodies. It would lie dormant for 10, 15 years and then kill them very quickly. Okay, so people who had gotten this HGH 10 years ago, all of a sudden were picking up this disease, and they connected it to them getting it from there. So that was the very end. Very quickly came the end of using HGH from pituitary glands. You can't get it from there anymore.
Still use it though.
But right around then, they discovered a way to make it through. I forgot to mention this before. A way to make this thing through. It's called.
Synthetic.
Okay, recombinant technology. Okay, what does recombinant mean? And they make a lot of those enzymes that are there, the other ones, the HCG and those stuff. They make it also the same way. They take a yeast, or they take some simple bacteria, some simple microorganism. They pull out all of its DNA, and they put in the right DNA into it, and they reprogram it to start producing what they wanted to make. Okay, so they take somebody else, they suck out all of his guts and give him somebody else's, and all of a sudden, I guess he thinks now he's a pituitary gland, and he starts making HGH. Okay, or the other ones, the other things also they can make also the same way through this recombinant technology. They're not using it from, they don't take it anymore from real pituitary glands because that's considered not healthy, safe anymore. I mean, it stopped like on a dime. You know what I mean? As soon as they realized what was going on, it was stopped. But they came out with these other ways to make it. This HGH and the other ones up there, HCG and LH, all those, a lot of them are made through this method, which, again, doesn't have the Kashrus, it just has, so to speak, regular Kashrus channels. Just make sure that the fermentation is done well, that's more straightforward.